For those of you who believe that Deadpool was the one who first brought silly comedy to the serious superhero world, we have news for you that will blow your mind for sure. Even before him, we had The Tick, a funny and silly superhero who has high moral standards and thinks that murder is just not cool. He can be annoyingly optimistic at times, but his innocence and politeness will always win your heart. Shoot him as many times as you want, drop him from the terrace of a high-rise, or throw him in the middle of a flammable gas explosion. He will always come out unharmed. The Amazon Prime series named The Tick had begun to gain immense traction when it was first aired in 2016, and yet the show is now lost to oblivion. In today's video, we're going to find out what exactly went wrong and why it got canceled. We have tea to spill. So without further ado, let's begin. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small clip for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The Tick TV series, 2016 to 2019. The story begins 15 years ago when Arthur was still a child. He was having a nice time, chilling with his father, having ice cream and waiting for his family. His dad had gone to pay the parking meter when an aircraft came crashing down on the old man and his car. The aircraft belonged to the famous Flag 5, a group of superheroes that used to protect the city. The ship lost control after it had been shot by a missile fired by the city villain called the Terror. He had weaponized a lethal version of syphilis, which blurred the team's vision, derailed the flight, and eventually killed many of the superheroes right in front of Arthur's eyes. Terror had not only taken away Arthur's dad from the little boy, but also stolen his ice cream. The city magazine covered the incident, and Arthur's story became famous. The poor little boy spent quite some time in therapy, struggling with PTSD, hallucinating sounds and sights, and drowning it all with medication. The world's first superhero, Superior, who had come to Earth and fought the Terror for decades, is reported to have killed his mortal enemy, but Arthur somehow doesn't believe it. Somewhere deep down, he believes that the Terror had simply gone underground, but he was still running a criminal nexus. And Arthur craved justice. He started hoarding clippings from newspapers to build his case and prove the villain was the root cause of all the evil in the city. His sister Dot did her best to look out for him and keep him grounded, but Arthur had full conviction in his theory. While Arthur works alone, he isn't the only one who has an eye on the criminal mastermind. Along with him, we have Overkill, current city vigilante and ex-member of the Flag 5. All his teammates were killed by the Terror, so he is seething with vengeance and bloodlust. We also have The Tick, a guy in a blue suit. He's part comic, part serious, kind of like Deadpool, you know? What unites them all is their absolute abhorrence towards crime and their unfaltering sense of justice. One day, Arthur finds himself investigating a criminal activity at a warehouse that was owned by Ramses IV and run by Miss Lint. There he comes across a new superhero who goes by the name of The Tick. Arthur comes under arrest for trespassing and is taken to jail. But the mysterious superhero now disappears. He reappears at the police station, coming to Arthur's aid and offering to help him escape the bars. But Dot was already about to claim custody of her brother, and the police had agreed to release him. The Tick goes back to the warehouse and beats the criminals to a pulp before letting the entire facility blow up. He also grabs hold of a briefcase containing a superhero suit with wings. In the next scene, Arthur wakes up with a start, only to find the Tick lying next to him. Arthur begins to lose his mind, but the Tick reassures him that in this crazy world, Arthur is one of the only few people returning to their senses and going sane instead. Fidgeting through Arthur's belongings while trying to persuade him, the Tick comes across Arthur's research, the wall stapled with news clippings, and confronts him about his mission. The Tick wants Arthur to join him in fighting crime and offers him the suit. Arthur could be the brains, while the Tick would be the brawn. The Tick believes that Arthur is a hero at heart, and together they can work as the guardians of the city. Now, time is running out, and Arthur must make a choice. The Tick comics. The Tick was originally conceived as a character by American cartoonist Bed Edlund as a parody of typical superhero comics. In 1986, the New England comics circulating in the stores of Massachusetts needed a newsletter mascot, and Edlund, being a regular customer, was quick to seize the opportunity. Thus, the Tick-suited funny blue guy with superhuman strength, nigh invulnerability, and a perfectly chiseled waist came into being. Slowly, his own universe expanded as a teenage Edlin spun yarns of a hilariously quirky superhero who was one of a kind. In the comics, the Tick escapes from a psychiatric hospital in order to clean up the city streets. He dedicates his life to fighting corruption and criminality, but we don't know what motivates him to do so. The Tick's recurring amnesia clouds memories of his past, but we do know that he was once a married man who was trying to figure out his purpose in life. He had a wife named Cloris, who wanted him to be a family man and wanted to have a child with him. But his crippling identity crisis had been making her increasingly frustrated, and the relationship was hanging by a thread. After an altercation between the two, she storms off, and the Tick realizes that he needs to embark on a soul-searching journey. Now, it's a different thing that his soul-searching journey began with a night of fervent drinking and ended up in the Rocky Mountains, where he started getting visions of a tiny cartoon character who, to him, randomly attacks a group of college frat boys. Like, this couldn't have been any weirder, but that's the Tick for you. Hilarious and absurd, with a pinch of philosophy, in the backdrop of a world getting darker by the minute.
Look out!
The Tick on TV. Tick's character had won the hearts of many ever since it came out. The comic series was later adapted on screen for an animated series in 1994. Tick's origin story was remodeled to cater to a younger audience who would be best left unexposed to Tick's existential crisis. But the humor and the action remained unparalleled. In one of the interviews, Tick remembers how he had to show his powers by blasting a dangerous device at the National Super Institute in Reno. It was a deadly feat of action, and the building was completely annihilated because of the explosion. This recollection left the judges shocked, but Tick was then appointed as the guardian of the city. As far as his memory goes, he has always been a hero, and he is never seen without his costume, even for a minute. So, Tick is dumb and funny, and with his mewling sidekick Arthur, they look hilariously stupid. Now, let's come to the villains. There's a character called Uncle Creamy who is basically a malicious living ice cream cone. Then we have Chairface Chippendale, and his face is exactly that, a chair. The jokes land right, the puns are obscure, and the irony of the whole situation makes you laugh your lungs out. Both the superheroes and the supervillains are equally silly and inept while they strive towards serious goals. This show is one of my favorite superhero cartoons from that decade, and it used to air on Fox Kids if I'm not wrong. Naturally, the show was a hit, and we just couldn't get enough of the Tick and his adventures. The Tick was reimagined in a live-action series in 2001, where the hero is seen patrolling a bus station. He had completely defeated his arch-enemy, which happened to be the coffee machine. As he gets the bus ticket, he runs into Arthur and accidentally sets off a robot on a murdering spree. So now, they must stop the menace from getting to the city and its innocent people. This show too kept the humor and action in its best shape. Like, you just cannot stop laughing when Tick shakes the money-extorting coffee machine and says, "Armless bandit? Empty your bladder of that bitter black urine men call coffee. It has its price, and its price has been paid. Java Devil, you are now my bitch." And yet, the show was cancelled after 9 episodes on Fox. So when Amazon released its own original production of a live-action series based on the Tick, fans just couldn't keep calm.
I don't wanna!
Why was the Tick cancelled? You see, the Tick was always universally loved ever since it debuted on the front page of a magazine. No wonder Amazon wanted to capitalize on its existing popularity. But after running for 2 whole seasons from 2016 to 2019, Amazon announced that the show was cancelled. This obviously left both the fans and the creators equally shocked because the show was actually doing well. Hashtags like Save the Tick and Lunatic Army had flooded social media for some time. In a heartbreaking tweet, Edlin wrote, "After much ado, we have found no new home for the Tick series in this current market." So that makes us wonder, what exactly was he referring to? Why was the show cancelled? WTF just happened. The single biggest competitor of the Tick happened to be The Boys. another satirical superhero drama that was also based on a comic book by Garth Ennis and Derek Robertson. The Boys also features a group of vigilantes, but here, the heroes abuse their superpowers for personal gain. While the Tick and Arthur work under no man, the Boys work for a powerful corporation called Vought International, whose activities aren't exactly noble. The heroes in The Boys are heroic only at face value. Most of them are reckless and corrupt, with little to no inherent goodness in them. So you see, the two shows are similar and yet very different. While The Tick is all about extolled values and juvenile fun, The Boys is more about trickery and getting away with bullshit. As Amazon Prime originals, The Tick's cancellation sort of coincided with The Boys' development. So if you look at the bigger picture, it only makes sense that one was chosen over the other. Rumor has it that internal corporate politics, VP changes, and evolving content priorities made The Tick's survival really difficult. The new leadership now chose more adult-oriented themes over The Tick's simplicity, so they were seen as direct competitors when content strategies on the streaming platform were revised. By 2019, superhero fatigue had already kicked in, and people wanted the lead characters to be powerful, yet absolute badasses. Marvel's heroes breaking the fourth wall and being self-aware of their flaws became the new normal. The whole superhero parody was now a thing of the past, and meta-comedy promised better box office success. And it only made sense that they would weed out a show with such high production costs. I mean, each episode cost close to $5 million. The Tick suit alone had bagged one of the most expensive budgets in the history of superhero costumes on television. I mean, they would use CGI just to hide the zipper in each episode for visual perfection. Peter Serafinowicz admitted that the complex design and its fit took quite a few months to go from unbearable to wearable. So, thrifty astronomical expenses came at the cost of the show's financial visibility, and the show was doomed to meet a catastrophic, abrupt end. To top it all off, Amazon adopted the split-season strategy right from the start, releasing the pilot in 2016, 6 episodes in 2017, and another 6 in 2018. This came as an unprecedented decision, the first of its kind, to deal with the binge-watching culture, but it also came at the cost of the show's momentum and the audience's loyalty. So the myth of event television backfired and viewer retention tanked while more successful Netflix models took off. Thus, innovation came at the cost of self-sabotage, and The Tick ended up as the butchered guinea pig. But it wasn't just unfavorable circumstances and technical challenges that ushered in the perfect storm of bad timing for the show. The problem ran deeper. You see, when Patrick Warburton was cast in the 2001 live-action series, he was quick to win the hearts of many who grew up watching the show. Back then, the concept was novel, and Warburton's performance was a solid 10. Over the years, he has been bombarded with questions asking him when his character would return on screen. But when the 2016 show was released, Warburton did not return, but only as one of the producers of the new show. Naturally, fans were upset when English actor Peter Serafinowicz became the new face of The Tick. Serafinowicz was a stand-up comedian who had previously worked in some really popular films like Star Wars, Shaun of the Dead, Guardians of the Galaxy, South Park, and Doctor Who. And he did a pretty good job interpreting the character of the Tick in his own way. But nostalgia played the devil's advocate, and fans constantly compared his performance to Warburton's iconic portrayal. There was a whole social media storm about the casting gone wrong, and that affected the reception of the rebooted show. The new show did manage to gain a viewership of 28% on Amazon Prime, some patchy critical acclaim, and a dedicated fan base. But this fan base was way too small and way too niche to save the show. The Twitter campaigns never really took off, and the initial enthusiasm died down with time. In the end, Edlund admitted that he tried to seek help from multiple sources, but The Tick failed to find a home again. Funny enough, this is the same guy who was initially hesitant about adapting his character on TV. Now, he thinks that the character is cursed. The show was strong enough to power through maybe 1 or 2 major shortcomings, but when a whole combination of multiple issues came its way, The Tick failed to tick. As a result, this version too was fated to meet its untimely end. Marvelous verdict. Fans across time and space have loved The Tick and his adventures. The character has survived the test of time, and seeing the character come alive on screen was the cherry on the cake. The Tick was a one-of-a-kind TV show that reeks of old-world values, willing suspension of disbelief, slow action, and light comedy. Clearly, The Tick isn't everyone's cup of tea. The TV show may not have been a successful successor, but the legacy of The Tick as a superhero parody continues through its cult following. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, be safe, and thanks everyone.